it's a Monday. Welcome on in to lunch with Claibs and Joe here on claibsonline.com. Whether you're watching on our Facebook page, Twitter, or on YouTube, welcome on in. Last day of February. And as always, we are powered by Ameren, Illinois, driven by Mungenast St. Louis Acura, and sponsored by the home loan expert, Ryan Kelly. Find him online at thehomeloanexpert.com. I'm Joe Roderick, joined alongside by Mike Claiborne down in sunny Florida. And Claibs about 2 blocks away from where you're sitting right now. There's a lot of important stuff going on in the world of baseball.
Yeah, it is, Joe, and none of it sounds good right now. There have been some tweets that have been posted here recently about the owners basically telling the players they can take the next month off. They don't care about starting in April. So it's not good, but these things can turn around. I just hope it doesn't become contentious where somebody gets up and walks away because we're under the self-imposed deadline by the commissioner that he wanted to have this thing in place by 6 o'clock this evening. Hasn't gotten out to the best of starts today, although they're still talking. And I think that's the key. And I have to be honest with you. While there's only so much I can actually say about this whole situation, the more you listen, the more you're confused by the issues that are in play here and how they're trying to solve them, whether it's dealing with the Super 2 or the scheduling for postseason and the ghost game. There's just so many things that are going on that make your head explode. So what I've tried to subscribe to is just waiting until the dust settles. The key here, I think, is nobody's going to win. All right. I think we're going to have 2 sides. They're going to feel like they won certain parts of it. But I think both sides will bleed a little bit before it's all said and done. And if they do that, I think it's a good deal.
But it comes down to the fact that you're talking about nobody wins in this. The biggest losers of all right now are going to be the fans. And I think you're seeing that right now. If you go on social media, you have seen the past few days. Many members of the media have just kind of, or even fans too, have been pointing out the fact of the auto renewal of MLB TV to the point where that got to be such a popular thing that was going on. MLB TV came out today and said, hey, if you forget to do it, if you forget to cancel your renewal, we won't charge you until a CBA is reached. So they kind of see the level of importance in keeping fans happy and trying not to take money away from them when there aren't games to be played right now.
Well, it's interesting you bring up the fans because yesterday when I went by Roger Dean, there had to be 40, 50 fans in their Cardinal gear standing around the gate, just kind of figuring out what's going on. And this morning, when I came from the gym, you saw people standing out, not knowing what to do, what to say, because they'd already made plans to be here for spring training. And there isn't going to be one as we know it today. And we don't know when that's going to happen. I know some of the businesses around here were kind of wringing their hands because this is their time they can actually make some money. And it's really interesting that Courtyard by Marriott, which you well know, across the street from the ballpark, there are plenty of rooms available. They've had some cancellations, and the ripple effect is something that I think that we'll really start to see the effects of here soon.
I have talked to many fans these past few weeks that every year they plan one of their vacations about around going to Jupiter and watching Cardinal baseball and just enjoying Florida weather in March. And they've asked me, what should I do? I have no idea. I'm not anywhere near that stuff right now. Go down there and enjoy the Florida weather. It'll be hit and miss if you get to see any kind of baseball down there.
And Joe, just like you said, you're in the dark on this. I'm here and I'm in the dark on it. The writers are in the dark on it. We had John Heyman yesterday tweet out that the deal was imminent. And we all just kind of looked at each other like, who the hell are you talking to? Nobody thought a deal was imminent yesterday. So we're all over the place on this. And once again, we get into a situation where people want to be first instead of right. And it just creates a lot of confusion and a lot of frustration. So I would just subscribe to everybody. Let's just let this thing play out because there's nothing we can do about it, okay? They don't talk to us. They don't ask us our opinion. And, that's fine. They have their job to do. And I can't worry about it. It'll happen at some point. just like it always does. It's unfortunate it's happening under these terms, but for people to worry and get themselves upset over something that they have no control over, none, it's unfortunate. Now, you can say, well, I have control. I don't have to go to games anymore. And that's certainly up to you. And I'm not telling anybody they should or shouldn't. I'd like for them to come, but I understand because they're frustrated. And, it's just part of doing business, part of negotiations. I wish they could have done it better, but you know what? This is what we're dealing with. So we have to try and make the best of
it. With everything going on, I know once baseball figures it out, there is going to be it's going to be a floodgate is going to open with moves being made, trades, free agent signings, what have you. And while we wait for something like that to happen, we actually did get some pretty big baseball news today, as right there also in Jupiter, right there, Roger Dean, the Hall of Famer Derek Jeter announces that he is stepping down immediately as the CEO of the Miami Marlins. Why did he choose today? What led to it? Was there any idea that this was going to happen?
I heard something on Friday that things were not going well within the Marlin organization. I didn't know it was Derek Jeter per se, but I was told that, they got some issues going on over there. I think maybe this is like the man. Derek Jeter was the managing partner. He was never the owner. Okay. So I think the higher ups and Derek probably came to a crossroad about how, whether it's negotiations that we're seeing with players and owners, or whether there's some other things with respect to vision of the way the direction of this organization. I'll tell everybody this. I have Miami as they stand now as a legitimate contender for that Eastern division. They got everything they're looking for. They got defense. They can pitch a lot. They've got some decent offense. I think they're looking for one more bat. But Miami can well find themselves fighting for a playoff spot, certainly in the Eastern division. So they're just about there. So what happened, we'll find out, I'm sure, here in the next few days. But for him to up and move on like this certainly is a big surprise. And I'm sure we'll get to the bottom of it by week's end.
Do you see it now? It wasn't a massive success by any means, his time with the Marlins.
Well, but there was growth, though. There was definite growth within the organization. They've done well with the draft. They've made some good trades that have panned out to be very beneficial to them. So from when he took over to where they're at now, there has been significant improvement. Now, I think on the back end of this, the PR side, they have not done well. They're the only team that I know of that released 2 Hall of Famers because they didn't want to pay them. The broadcast situation is a disaster with Tommy Hutton and Dave Van Allen, who's a Hall of Fame broadcaster, Dave Van Horn, I'm sorry, and how they've handled those things. Their TV situation has been abominable. So they have made a lot of mistakes away from the ballpark as far as the field, off the field is concerned, but on the field, they're moving in the right direction.
Do you see Derek Jeter popping up with any other team?
No, I don't. I just think that, people would say, well, maybe he go to the Yankees. Well, the Yankees last check, they look like they're pretty solid with the Steinbrenner brothers running the team, and Brian Cashman's been there forever. Now, if Brian Cashman wants to move on, that's different. But I don't know if Derek Jeter wants to be part of that Yankee limelight. I think Derek Jeter would rather be known as a popular, likable guy. When you become a GM or a president of a team, you have to make tough decisions. And sometimes that's not going to go over well with fans. So if you're Derek Jeter, hey, I like my legacy to be as it is, compared to coming back and maybe making a move that would be unpopular with the fan base.
For anybody, I mean, living down, working for the Marlins and then having your spring training offices in Jupiter, I mean, that's perfect. You don't have to go far at all, and you just get to stay in Southern Florida all year round.
Nothing wrong with it as far as I'm concerned. But, you just never know where they're at ownership-wise and what they want to do next. So, again, before we pass judgment, I think I'm going to wait to see how things unfold and see if this was the right move for Derek Jeter or was it a bad move for the Marlin ownership group.
So no real deadline in sight for Major League Baseball and the collective bargaining agreement. We just know today is the day that Major League Baseball set for the possibility to miss opening day and miss games. on the calendar as we continue to follow Twitter and see how those meetings go. We'll be as knowledgeable as you guys as we see the tweets rolling on through. We will take a quick break. When we come back, I do want to touch more on some baseball that's been going on this week. Not the pros though. I want to talk a little college baseball with you when we come back. That and so much more here on today's Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Ameren, Illinois, driven by Mungenast St. Louis Acura, and also sponsored by Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert. Find him online at thehomeloanexpert.com.
My name is Jeremy Seabury. I am one of the owners of Pulpit K9.
Marcus Galmore, co-owner of Pulpit K9.
What makes us different from other dog companies is there is no breed left behind. We stand by that 120%. We specialize in aggressive behavior modification. Good. We don't turn away. We bring them in for a free evaluation to see if we can help the dog.
Here at Pulpit K9, we focus on the owners, educating the owners.
How do I get this dog to give me the behaviors that I'm asking for without the treats? So that's when me and Marcus come in. We train the dog, so when you take the dog home, you don't need the treats. The dog is doing it because you're asking it to.
After each training package, we go through a series of lessons. We keep going until the owner gets it.
We make sure that they go over the beatings with their dog, and that dog is listening before they leave here, but also we follow up when they get home. Is your pup listening to you here? If it's not, we one phone call away, we'll make a trip. We're at the Pulpit Mobile, where we go out to their homes and make sure their dog is okay.
And Claibs, you know the folks at K9 very well. That's where your dog is.
Yeah, they took great care of my dogs. I can tell you one thing: they've been polished. Let's just put it that way. They were a little rough around the edges, but what Jeremy was able to do, and I know some other people that have gone to them, and they come back with rave reviews about how they take care of the dogs. And all you need to do is drop them off with them, let them work with them, and all of a sudden, when you get them back, it'll be like a new family member. So, like I said, if you have a pet and you think there's no such thing as not teaching an old dog new tricks, or if you have a new pet for your kids or whatever, and you just need a little bit of training, this is where you want to go.
Claibs, no baseball spring training to talk about right now, but college baseball is in their second week of the season, and I feel like we always get this big buzz at the start of the year, and then maybe it goes away and then comes back in June come College World Series. Maybe that has to do with Major League Baseball starting up, but right now, hey, college baseball is the highest form of baseball that we're getting to see on our TV. And that's
until the Korean Baseball League gets started like we did when the pandemic first broke out.
Hey, baseball's baseball. But
it's not.
North Carolina State has a true freshman that is lighting the world on fire right now. Tommy White, or Tommy Tanks as he's being called, 9 home runs in his first 8 games. Claibs, this kid was a senior in high school last year. He is a true freshman, batting third for an ACC school, hitting bombs.
It's funny. I was told about him last week, and I had a chance to meet with somebody who knows him really well. And he just said, hey, you got to pay attention to this guy. He said he's just hitting heaters in the next county. And so I started watching some of the home runs that he hit, and I'm like, holy cow. So the question will be, A, will they continue to pitch to him? And I think they will. B, what will they do as far as throwing him a few more breaking balls just to see what he's made of? And C, does he not hit the wall with all this exposure? And, oh, by the way, we'd like for you to go to class or 2 while you're here. So he's got a lot on his plate, but, man, he has been fun to watch. And, I mean, Joe, in the 9 home runs he's hit, and he hits them in bunches, none of them were cheap home runs, okay? None of them were scratching the wall at the top of the wall. These balls are long gone. So he'll be fun to watch. He will be a guy that we'll hear a lot more, and he will be great for college baseball because he'll be a name and likeness guy. And, we only think about name and likeness with basketball and football, but I think what he can do for college baseball is something that we all might want to start paying closer attention to.
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, he's if he is getting all of these views, if he's getting people to tune into games, that makes him worth money.
Absolutely.
And there's going to be a company that's going to figure out how to monetize on that. And that company has to figure out how to make it work for them. He's going to get paid for it.
He'll be fun to watch. It's been good to see him. And, we need those sort of things. Now, the question is, if you watch some college baseball, and for some reason, I've kind of watched a little bit more than I normally would. These guys like to ham it up a lot. They like to have fun, and, they like to profile and see where it's going. They have some antics around the plate after they hit a home run. And you have to wonder, while we encourage players today to have fun, there's still the so-called old school guys that are like, well, I want to make them pay for that. And so now we start throwing at people, and all of a sudden we got brawls and somebody gets hurt. And, it just leads to things that in this day and age, we probably shouldn't subscribe to like we used to, where, if a guy hits a bomb and you stand there and watch it, then, there's some chirping and somebody gets hit. And, they say, well, that's how the game is. Well, no, the game isn't that way anymore, because baseball and some of its hierarchy has said, hey, we want the guys to have fun. We want them to have fun like they do in the Caribbean. We want them to have fun like they do in Mexico. We want them to have that kind of fun. Well, we're in the United States, and some guys haven't gotten that memo yet.
I don't know if you saw this too over the weekend. Tyrone Malone, I think is how you pronounce his name, for Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm.
He is a nose tackle for their football team down there. 300-pound nose tackle for their football team. Yesterday hit a 404-foot home run. He plays first base on the baseball team too. So don't sit there with your 10-year-old and try to tell them they need to play baseball year round and they can only play one sport. This is a guy who's playing Division I SEC football and now SEC baseball,
which is the best, which has the best conferences in both. I mean, they're both sports. They have the best leagues in baseball and football.
100%. Yeah.
And so this isn't like he's playing against a bunch of scrubs. Now, in this case, early in the year, your non-conference games, you're going to pick a nice turnip you wear out. But with that said, these guys are playing against. They're going to be playing against good competition. And I've always subscribed that I didn't do it with my kids, and I'm not trying to raise somebody else's kids, but I think there's enough documentation from players themselves on the professional level that kids have to play more than one sport. It benefits everyone involved. And I can't stress it enough. And when you see these parents that have their kid playing baseball 12 months out of the year, then here comes the burnout. We see it in hockey. We've seen it in tennis. You've got to get them involved in some other sports or some other activities. It may not even be sports, but they've got to get away from what they're doing.
Just a note here, if you're looking for some college baseball to go watch, SLU, their season is up underway, and later this weekend they have a 5-game series against Northern Colorado. I'm sorry, 6-game series. Geez, as I'm looking, no, wait, that's just 4. Sorry, I'm reading the schedule way wrong. 4-game series against Northern Colorado before my Western Illinois Leathernecks come into town next Tuesday. So I know what I'm going to be doing next Tuesday, heading down there to the Billikens Sports Complex. And
let's hope the weather
team down there. Yeah,
let's hope the weather is permitting.
That's very, very true. So yeah, lots of there's still baseball. There's still baseball to watch. As Claibs tells you, though, it's not Major League Baseball, but for right now, baseball is baseball. Whether it's college, Korean League, whatever you can get, take it in. But hey, speaking of college sports, this past weekend, college basketball on Saturday, for the first time ever, the number 1 ranked team, 2, 3, 4, 5, and number 6 ranked teams all lost on Saturday. It's not going to do anything to any of those teams come tournament time. I mean, they're all still going to be in the tournament. It's not as fascinating as if it were to happen in football and teams would get knocked out of the playoffs. But still, it kind of gives you a nice precursor to March where anything can happen. Any of these teams can lose and any given game, and it's kind of showing the parity that we have in college basketball this year. No clue who a top team is going to be come I guess 2 weeks. We're gonna have our brackets.
I agree with you, and I kind of wonder sometimes, do rankings do everyone a disservice? Because I think they get it wrong more than they get it right. because there are some teams, because of schedule and because of their situation, have been able to prosper from it. But I always wonder if the rankings really do teams a real service. And I don't think they do. This week, we saw some teams, as you mentioned, get knocked off. But I wonder, does it affect their seeding in the tournament? But you touched on something. This is another year where I think it's anybody's tournament. Now, we'll narrow it down to maybe 5, maybe 8 teams that we think, and I guarantee they'll all be named universities and colleges. There won't be somebody coming out of the blue. You'll talk about Duke and Kansas and Gonzaga and schools like that. Those guys, that pack is always going to be there. And we always put our money on those guys being somewhere near the Final Four. If you're from a major conference, the same thing applies. We still don't have that team that's going to be able to break through that we haven't heard of or haven't seen that much of. Gonzaga is probably representing the whole Western time zone in what they're able to do. San Diego's played well. Obviously, they beat Gonzaga. But overall, the rest of the country is like, hey, anybody can get knocked off on any given night.
Yeah.
And I guess that's good.
You talk about the rankings too, and where they sit. Take Illinois, for example. They were 15 going into this weekend. They lose to a ranked Ohio State team, and then they pull off a pretty gutsy win against Michigan on was it Sunday? Yesterday, they pull off the win against them, and they drop now to 20th in the country. So out of that, I guess top 4 seeding range, but really with a team like Illinois, they go on a run in the Big Ten tournament, and that puts them right back in there as a 3 or a 4 seed in one of those regions.
You mentioned the tournament, the conference tournament, which, as you know, I'm vehemently opposed to, as far as how they get the automatic bid compared to a team who wins out in the league over the course of the season. I'd like to see them flip that. I think conference tournaments are something that they don't ask you to do at any time during the year. Play 3, in some cases 4 games in a row and expect you to win. And maybe some will say, well, that's why they get the automatic bid, because they've done something they haven't done before. Well, then why are we even playing the regular season then? So, it's you can't have it both ways, in my opinion. But apparently, because you can make money off these conference tournaments, that's why we have them. But, I just think there's got to be a better way as far as rewarding a team who's been busting it from day one to the end of the regular season.
Those conference tournaments will, for some of the lower level conferences, will start up this week, and then all the big names get going for next week. You are watching Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Ameren, Illinois, driven by Mungenast St. Louis Acura, and also sponsored by Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert. Find him online at thehomeloanexpert.com. We are going to take a break for an Ameren Minute and come back and talk a little Blues hockey right after this.
The future of electric vehicles is beginning to grow across the Midwest, but there's a lot of work to be done before most people will feel comfortable switching from gas to EV. Ameren, Illinois President and Chairman Richard Mart gives us some insight into how they're preparing by adding more electric vehicle charging stations.
Our vision is to basically have charging stations every 60 miles or so, from Cook County all the way to the tip of the state down to the Kentucky area, and then across the state, east and west, going toward Kansas and Iowa to the west, and going toward Indiana to the east. And so we feel that within the next few years we'll probably add, we're hoping to add 60 to 70 a year over the next 5 years to really complete that infrastructure for the entire Midwest. In fact, the Midwest now has all the utilities in the Midwest are joining together to coordinate that. So, which is the first time it's ever happened that you've had Wisconsin say, okay, we're going to build our charging stations here, and Illinois say, okay, well, we can tap on here, and Missouri, this makes sense for us. So we can expand that north, south, east, and west by coordinating with the other utilities.
It's Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Ameren, Illinois, driven by Mungenast St. Louis Acura, and sponsored by Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert. Find him online at thehomeloanexpert.com. Claibs, it was last Tuesday is when we did the last lunch show, and in that show I talked about the end of the Jordan Binnington era and how Husso was kind of the number one goalie here for the Blues. You told me not so fast. You told me I was getting a little bit ahead of myself, and you were right with wins against Philadelphia and a shutout yesterday afternoon against the Blackhawks. Like, not teams that are going to be, competing for a Stanley Cup later on this
they won't
summer,
even be,
still,
neither one of them even be in the playoffs. So I know where you're going with it. Yeah.
But I'm just saying he got the starts. He came out and he played really, really good hockey. Was just the goaltending was outstanding in his last two starts, and it looks like he's back.
Well, he's back against teams that he's supposed to beat. And I think the thing that I like about it, what I took away from it was he didn't give up the one goal the bad goal every night that we've seen him do over the course of the last 2 years. I thought the last couple of games he was solid. His mechanics were good. He really looked like he was playing with a lot of confidence and being able to stray for the net and set up pucks and just do little things that we didn't see him do with any consistency. Now, you touched on the fact that neither one of these teams is very good, but you know what? He did exactly what he was supposed to do. He shut the door on them, and that's what you want to do, and that's how you build confidence. I'll be anxious to see when his next start will be. The Blues are in New York to take on the Rangers. I would imagine Husso will get a look at that game. But I think what he's done is made Craig Berube's job even more challenging in figuring out, okay, how can I keep these guys both fresh and also keep them hot? So it'll be fun to watch, but it's a good situation for the Blues. One less thing to worry about, so you can move on to something else as far as you trying to get yourself ramped up for getting into postseason play, and certainly before the trade deadline, looking around, trying to figure out what else do we need to make us whole.
Yeah, they're in New York all week now with a game on Wednesday against the Rangers and then Saturday and Sunday against the Devils and the Islanders.
Well, if you can bring Zdeno Chara back with you off of this road trip, I'd be happy with that.
Do you think what move do they need to make?
You need another defenseman. And you need another defenseman for depth more than anything else. I mean, you've got young kids like Perunovic and Wallman, guys who can play. But I think when you get into postseason play, you're looking for veteran experience because every shift counts. And that doesn't mean you won't be able to play those kids. But if I have a Zdeno Chara out there and I can get him 12, 16 minutes a night, maybe even more. I mean, he's a physical specimen. And don't let his age fool you. He's a guy that can certainly step in and give you a little bit more stability. His experience overall is just impeccable. I mean, he skated more as a defenseman than anybody in the National Hockey League. And he's still, as I mentioned, physically as good as anybody out there. I mean, he takes incredible care of himself. I think his leadership is something that can certainly help also. And I think for a price, he wouldn't cost you as much as a Jacob Chikrin or some of the other players that are out there on the market. So that would be my personal candidate. And it wouldn't cost you as much.
When you look at how Craig Berube needs to move forward with playing the goalies, you said you don't know when Bennington gets his next start. We know it'll be this week. We know it'll be one of these three games. We know Husso's not starting all three, but Husso has done nothing to lose any playing time right now. He has been playing outstanding, but Jordan Bennington is the goalie that 3 years ago, I guess, won you a Stanley Cup. So how do you balance that for the remainder of the season into the playoffs?
Well, it comes down to a couple of things. The reason why you keep giving Bennington a chance, because you're paying him a whole lot of money. The other thing that comes into play here is Husso's an unrestricted free agent after this year. And I don't know if you want to try and re-sign him and have two goalies where you're going to probably spend an upwards of $10 million on. It would be a lot to ask, but man, there's a position that you could be the man. And you would have people who are rested compared to some goalies who want to play every night. So it's a real tough situation to deal with right now. How they handle that, I don't know. I think they just want to get through the season. Do they feel like Charlie Lindgren is a guy that can help them as a backup? Is there someone else? They got a couple other kids in the organization they really like, but are they ready to be backups to Bennington? Or do we know Bennington is going to be this good from now on? I mean, we thought Jake Allen was that guy a few years ago, and when he hit the skids, he never really recovered until he became a backup. And then he goes to Montreal. He goes back to being the old Jake Allen. Now, granted, that team doesn't have very many players in front of him that are any good. So that kind of exposes him. But if you're the St. Louis Blues, you just say, let's just ride this until we get to the end of the year, and then we'll figure out what works best for us.
Are you and Alex Ferrario meeting up this week?
Tomorrow morning we will visit, and we will have something up on Claibs Online tomorrow afternoon.
All right. We will take another break. When we come back, a lot more to talk about here on Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Ameren, Illinois, driven by Mungenast St. Louis Acura, and hey, also sponsored by this guy.
I'm Ryan Kelly with thehomeloanexpert.com. Banks are great for car loans, but when you need a home loan, you need an expert. We'll get you pre-approved the day you call in, lower rates, and with our 21-day closing guarantee, you'll be in your dream home in weeks.
There's our guy, Ryan Kelly. That hair is looking just phenomenal. I think every time I see a new commercial of his, I let him know that it's looking good. I need to get with him. So we keep talking about it.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I need to talk with him.
You need to be a little bit more stylish.
What's that?
You need to be a little bit more stylish. If you're going to go with the
if I had Ryan's guys to do me up before I shot a commercial or something, it would look really good too.
I don't think Ryan gets anything done up. I think he is who he is. I don't think he changes horses for the race no matter what.
No, he has somebody doing hair. He has to have somebody doing his hair for those commercials.
Okay. I'm out of this conversation. You know me, I got nothing on that.
You ask him next week and see. Hey, this is something I usually would have led with, but I feel like you're going to have a lot to say about it. The thing going on right now in the NFL with the announcers, with the TV deals and everything going on with that last week, and kind of a blockbuster move. Troy Aikman announces that he is leaving Fox, the number one guy, the number one color commentator on Fox. He is leaving to go join Monday Night Football. And now it's kind of causing a bit of a domino effect, wondering what all the other teams are going to look like. We know that Amazon is getting Thursday Night Football, so you're going to have to watch Thursday Night Football on Amazon. We don't know who the play-by-play voice or the color commentator is for that. We don't know who's going to join Joe Buck now as the number one guy at Fox, or if Joe Buck's going to stay at Fox. And it's kind of causing from the outside looking in, it's kind of fun to just see where all these pieces are going to fall into place.
Yeah, it is interesting. And I'll just, for full disclosure, Joe's a good friend, but the rest of them, I don't really watch games anymore to see who the broadcasters are. I find some of them to be interesting, but I've seen enough football where I can kind of make my own decisions about things. But with that said, I think I'm really probably more surprised that Troy Aikman got $17 million. Okay. He's been good. All right. But maybe because of Romo getting the money, they're kind of opposites with regard to personality. Troy is as prepared as anyone, but I just don't see it. I just don't see it. But I guess that's going to be the run of the mill, and good for him. Anytime a guy can get a raise, and I'm happy for him. But it's just not something to me that really excites me. But I do understand what you're saying, because there is a domino effect. And I'd like to see some of these networks maybe think outside the box. I was on with Frank Cusimano earlier. I really think the best analyst in football is Kirk Herbstreit. I think Kirk Herbstreit is as prepared and does his homework and understands the game for a guy who never took a snap in the NFL.
And he's being rumored for that Amazon job. He's being rumored to go to be the color commentator over there.
I think he'd be terrific. Now,
paired with who?
Who cares? I mean, I think that's something.
Does Al Michaels take that job?
If he doesn't have one at NBC, I guess he'd be interested in it.
I don't know what his contract deal is.
Well, he's done. His contract expired after the Super Bowl.
Well, then, yeah, they're not hiring. I mean, they've paid Mike Tirico too much money to come in and do that
exactly.
job. So, yeah, Al Michaels is looking for a place to do games.
Yeah, but I think that's something that's going to be interesting. Amazon has a chance to make a real splash. unlike YouTube, when YouTube decided to get in the baseball business, nobody knew that YouTube was in the baseball business. And then all they did was rent it out people who were already doing games elsewhere that weren't working for Bally's or at that time Fox. And it really never caught on. Now, maybe obviously they'll try it again this year, but it just doesn't have the same zing. Amazon is a little bit better situation, I think. They've got the money, they've got the resources and the technology to make this an interesting presentation. Who that play-by-play person is, you would like for them to be recognizable. And that just makes you think, all right, who else is available other than Al Michaels? And Al certainly gives it credibility. But I think they still have to think outside the box and think about some other legitimate candidates who may be elsewhere as we speak.
One of the fascinating things about all this, you mentioned that Troy Aikman's getting $17 million. We know Tony Romo is making, what is it, 9 figures, whatever his contract is. It's
17.
Yeah, it's he's making just an outstanding amount of money. That now you're getting coaches in the NFL, and in some cases, maybe players stepping away from the game earlier than they normally would have to go to the broadcast booth, because not only is the money better there in some cases, they don't have the stress of the job.
You're not sore. You're not sore the next day. You're not being second guessed by some guy sitting in his basement. You're right. It does open up the door. And really, we really haven't seen anything like this. You know, when Madden walked away at his age, he found himself in the broadcasting, and I think the rest is history with regard to his success. And we've had a few other coaches, because they got fired, you know, very few guys walk away to jump into the broadcast situation, okay? But in this case, maybe there's a guy out there. I don't know. I know Sean McVay, everybody was hot to trot on, but he said he's staying. Drew Brees is a guy that I think NBC was grooming. I'm not sure where that goes right now. So then you have to think, all right, who else is a guy? And the only way we can judge whether they're any good or not is their post-game press conferences and their interviews with the broadcasters of the week. We don't really know much more about them. So if we're going to go on those sound bites that we see in here and think that we can morph this person into a broadcaster, well, good luck. I just think that the pool is it's not as deep as far as talent that's ready to step right in and take on one of the biggest games of the week. I don't know who that person is.
And how many times do we see those coaches or players that want absolutely nothing to do with the media during their playing days decide that right after they retire, like, oh, I think I might want to go do that.
I'll give you the best example. He was a former player, Shannon Sharp, biggest jackass in the league, hated the media, MF'd them all the time. First thing he does when he gets out, when he has a neck injury, he's with ESPN. And now all of a sudden he's the man. You know, he now embraces it. He talked himself out of that job. It hasn't been hired since. But there are a few guys that have done that over the course of the years. I know a guy locally that MF'd the media a lot. And then all of a sudden when he's out of the game, all of a sudden he wants to be back involved. So, you can't have it both ways.
No, but they sure try. They was it John Fox recently for when he was fired by the Bears and was never wanted to talk to the media, nothing with them. First thing he did, I want to try out at ESPN.
Yeah.
And you're kind of looking at that, and it's, you didn't want to say a thing to anybody when you were playing. Now you want to talk.
On the other side of that coin, you had some guys that were engaging. Rex Ryan had his deal with the media. He was good. Herm Edwards was really good. As a coach, Herm Edwards made media people accountable when they would ask dumb questions, I won't say dumb questions that had no merit. So he was good, and he panned out. And at the rate he's going to Arizona State, he might be back in the media here. But point being, there are some coaches who figured out just be a good person. You just never know where it takes you. Then you have people who feel like, I'm going to pee all over you because I can. And then they want the job because they get fired because they weren't good enough as a coach or in some cases as a person. So it's an awkward situation for sure. But I think guys have to understand it's not as easy as it looks. Now, you may think it looks easy, but there's a lot of work that goes into it. And every former player and every former coach isn't a broadcaster. I think one of the things why I'm rooting for Kirk Herbstreit, as I said, I think he's the best there is because he didn't play in the league. And we can dispense with that whole story about, well, how would you know? You never played in the league. Well, I've watched enough. I think I'm smart enough to figure out some things on my own. And I'd love to see him trump all those guys who played in the league who thought they were deserving just because they played in the league. I think we should move on from that.
We didn't have a chance to talk about this earlier, but you mentioning all coaches, these coaches being fired, hired, and whatnot. I saw the story about Hugh Jackson and the coach at Grambling State and the hire that he made of Art Briles, the former Baylor head football coach, and kind of a lot of the controversy that has come with that. Hugh Jackson sent out a press release earlier today that I don't think really helped the matter much with some of the things that he had to say.
No, I agree with you. I don't know where Hugh Jackson gets off thinking he could pull off something like this with his coaching record. Now, if this is Nick Saban and he wants to bring Briles back, then everybody says, well, Nick said it, so we got to roll with it. And I get that. But we're talking about Hugh Jackson, who coached some of the worst teams in the National Football League with the Raiders and also with the Browns. He's going to Grambling, a school that is in desperate need of a reboot. And the first thing he does is piss off their most successful athlete in Doug Williams by bringing in a guy. Hey, if you want to bring in a guy, there's plenty of guys out there who might deserve a second chance. But I don't think Hugh Jackson's in a position to do it. It's, again, if it's Alabama or somewhere where there's structure and maybe he's not as noticed, that's one thing. But at Grambling, and considering all the things that Art Briles was guilty of as a coach, no, doesn't work. Does not work.
Claibs, we're going to wrap it up here for the show today. You already mentioned that you have Alex Ferrario on tomorrow. Any other guests lined up for the week?
Well, I was waiting on you to tell me about Ian O'Connor.
That was one I am waiting on that. I know you and I have both been trying to get that done with emails. Have you received the book yet?
I have not received anything.
Okay, I know they sent it in the mail. They sent it.
I'll check again today.
Last Tuesday. So head on down there and take a look at that. But I know
it wasn't there this morning. Let's just put it that way.
Okay. At some point you will be talking with the author Ian O'Connor about about the book that he just wrote about Coach K, which is a New York Times bestseller right now. So you guys will have a chance to talk about that book, and hopefully it comes in the mail and you have a chance to read that book before you talk with Ian. So
I'm a speed reader, so I'll get through it.
Anything else on top of that?
No, we're going to leave this week kind of open because of baseball and how things are unfolding there. A lot of guys who cover the game are here. Bob Nightingale, Jesse Rogers, and I have spent a lot more time together than we normally would. And then you got a few losers down here, some local losers, but it is what it is. It's interesting. Like they all sit around the back gate, where the owners are going in at, just waiting on somebody to tell them something, and they're texting, and it's unique because we've never seen this before. I mean, the closest thing I think we saw to this is when the pandemic first broke out and everybody's kind of waiting around to see what kind of statement or announcement was going to be made on how we were going to move forward on it. But this is a little different because everyone's livelihood is at stake here. And while they're over there meeting as we speak, let's just hope we can come up with something that's reasonable for both sides and we can move forward and get this season underway. Did you go down to any of the Honda Classic this weekend? Went over for a little bit yesterday, and I got to tell you, I was a little disappointed. None of the named players were out there. I mean, they'd all, missed the cut or finished out of the running. Because I got news for you. The guy who won, he's the first Austrian to ever. The only Straka I ever knew was Martin Straka that played in the NHL. First Austrian to win. And there were a lot of other guys that were fledgling on the tour. And to be honest with you, this was a little bit of a disappointment this year because they only had 12 of the top 50 golfers participate in the Honda Classic. So they're kind of at a crossroads. And maybe once Phil Mickelson gets off the radar, they can go back to business as usual. We didn't have a chance to talk about that.
That's right.
I'm glad somebody's finally called bullshit on Phil Mickelson because Phil Mickelson has always been about Phil in every sense of the word. And what he tried to do to this tournament, and granted, this is a bigger issue because there's a licensing fee that when you sign on with the tour, the PGA owns your licensing rights. Okay. So Phil was trying to do some things on his own, but he had to pay the PGA $1 million in order to do it. Not happy about it, made some comments. He and PGA were going back and forth. So this is basically screw you. I'm going to show you that I got some juice. So he gets involved with the Saudis, and we all know what their track record has been. And he kind of made an off-cuff remark. He said it was off the record. I don't think there's such a thing these days. And now it's come back to bite him where he's losing sponsors. But I always ask the question, when he was a guy that was allegedly involved in insider trading, all the guys that he ran with went to jail or got kicked off the SEC. He's the only guy that PGA didn't do anything about. And I always wonder, how did Phil Mickelson dodge that bullet where he ratted out everybody that was involved in that situation? So how does he continue to get a mulligan, pardon the pun? But it's now finally caught up to him. The gambling issues that arose around him was another concern of the PGA, and he continued to get a pass. So now he's put himself in a real vice, and I think the PGA is going to squeeze hard because you know what? They don't need Phil Mickelson. They really don't. He won last year on the major, the oldest to win a major, but at the end of the day, this league is moving forward with some younger guys who may have as much personality, if not skill, as he does.
He is Mike Claiborne. I'm Joe Roderick. That'll wrap it up for this week's Lunch with Claibs and Joe right here on claibsonline.com. And we are sponsored each and every week by Ameren, Illinois, Mungenast, St. Louis Acura, and Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert. You can find him online at thehomeloanexpert.com. Keep checking out Claibs Online all week long for new content each and every day. And until then, have a great rest of your Monday.
St. Louis Acura is the only Acura dealer in the nation to win the Precision Team Award for 30 years. How do we do it? By making you, our customers, our #1 priority. As others increase their fees and take advantage of limited inventory, we keep our prices low because we remain committed to becoming better than ever and treating you as we want to be treated. We want you coming back and sending your friends and family to a veteran-owned, family-based business you can trust. St. Louis Acura, better than ever for you.